Thank you, Creative Mornings, for having me. That's my name, and that's a mural I recently completed over at H&S, a House of Neighborly Services down on the south side. And that particular piece, it was based on tradition, and that's the tradition of storytelling. And so if you go there, that's why all of the elements are in that piece, is because the neighborhood wanted to tell their story, because so much of it you might hear on the news in a negative way, and they wanted to represent themselves and what they've actually been working on all of these 70 odd years. So when it came to my attention about tradition, I thought that I should do something that was close to my heart, something that we all share. Now I think it's a global thing, but that is in the Day of the Dead celebration. Let's see if I get this clicker thing right. Oh, wait. So what I have here as far as what Google translates tradition is a custom of beliefs that is passed on from generation to generation. And a lot of times these traditions aren't even written down. They're just verbally shared by storytelling. But there's a lot of information on history of Day of the Dead. And I didn't even realize how deep it was once I started reading into it. But from what I remember and what I grew up with, it was just like this. There was a woman, or the elders, they'd be walking around and they'd start cleaning up and decorating the altars, cemetery sites. And I know I'm a little bit nervous this morning, and I think it's because I get shy. And for most of you that do know me in the group, I do talk a lot, but this is just so deep because it just so happens that last night we lost a family member, one of our elders, a grandmother, and it's something different. We know each other here in life, and then when we're gone, we still need that sense of that essence of being able to hold somebody and hold on to them. But this is what it looks like when the cultural ancestors, how they would decorate these grave sites. The marigolds, they would clean it up. Everybody would have like sage, or they'd bring offerings. But it goes way, way far back. Further back than some of these abuelos that are sitting down and lighting up candles on November 1st and November 2nd. It goes all the way back, and I had to write this down because I could not say it. But it's Mite Kasiwato. And she's the queen of the underworld, the lady of the dead. The modern version of the holiday fuses ancient nature-based pre-Hispanic traditions with the Catholic Feast of All Saints, or Hallows Day celebration to honor the saints and All Souls Day, and a procession that began after the Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés, which is interesting because a lot of us gangsters wear Cortés tennies. But that was a challenge between Nike and Adidas at that time. Anyhow, but I do have an image of that. And when I was researching these images and these items, I had never even thought to look this up before. And so I was like, wow, there's actually some visual documentation of how that went down. It didn't change here. So in these images, you could see that there's been artists that they were told the story of how this happened, and then they went ahead and they designed it. And I think that that's what is awesome about artists. When we get any sort of tradition or any sort of theme, how we reinterpret that theme. And here, this is not as scary as I think it actually went down, but but you know what, Catholicism, and this goes back to 1519, the year 1519, and how the Catholicism dominated that. And they brought some of what they had from Spain down to the Mayans and the Aztecs, and it actually made, they were dominant in the 1700s. It really took over. So a lot of the writings and a lot of the stories, those things were burned and destroyed. And learning and thinking about all these things and asking questions, I actually found out something that you guys have here in Tucson, the St. Javier Church, that it's an incomplete church. Do you all know why that is? Father Kino, he's such an awesome man. He came down and he was pouring Catholicism upon the people of the natives, of Native Americans, and he was so humbled by their receiving of this other culture and religion that he decided to not complete the church. That's why there's only one temple completed, because the Catholic Church said that once it's complete, they had to start charging people for coming in. So thank God for Father Kino. He made it available to people to not be taxed each time they went to church. So I thought that was really cool. So in the 20th century, we have La Calavera, or La Catrina. And this is one of the most popular icons. And again, here we are as artists interpreting what that is. And really, this came from an etching that was by Jose Guadalupe Posada. This became the icon for the procession. And as Day of the Dead is a tradition, it is now part of many of our lives. Not just because we all die, but it's because we have a way of a tradition of celebrating our loved ones whom have passed on. And as an artist, I like I said, I do like to talk a lot, and I get involved with everybody because you can't do this when you're gone. There's a place called, in town, it's a group, it's called Death Cafe. And I decided to go in there one day with a sculpture I created out of clear tape and cellophane. And I kind of creeped the people out when I went in there. But what I was doing was I created a ghost. Most of us don't feel ghosts, or we can't see ghosts. And so using the saran wrap and this clear tape, I was able to make a mold of my chubby self, and it was an element. Somebody was sitting next to us. But what I discovered in Death Cafe was that a lot of us that are grieving, we don't make the time to talk to each other. Sometimes we just go into our little spaces. And that's really not a tradition, that's just something that, how different people, when they go through the grieving process. But the Death Cafe, what they are trying to promote and do is talking about it, making sure that we all get what we have inside out. And I think that that's why Day of the Dead is so well, like we can all take it in and share it as a culture, because we all need each other. We're grieving individually. We all need to really come out and really support each other and talk to each other. And I think that's what Tucson is, and that's what Tucson does. That's why I love it so much. I'm from Los Angeles, and it's not like Tucson. It's very crazy, it's very wild. But in some cases, in the loss of a family, it could be very intimate and very delicate subject, and every household has their very own way of introducing the subject of death. And as a youth, I shared a home with my grandparents. And so they're from a totally different generation. I mean, and having me as a grandchild, I think I spooked them out enough. But, excuse me. That is Jose Guadalupe Posada. He's the actual artist that did the etching for the Catrina. And you know what, a lot of people don't know what he actually looks like, but this guy, he's awesome. He's the first editorial cartoonist that would do etchings of all the government officials. I see a face, someone light up. You've seen some of his art? But he was very popular. But these are my grandparents. They were a family of mariachis. They came from El Paso. And on one of those trips, my great-grandmother was in the vehicle, and they were on their way to play a wedding. And they were on a 2-lane highway, and a box truck passed them and flipped their car. And they all came rolling out. And my great-grandmother actually ended up dying because of that accident. But they took her to the hospital. These young men, my great-uncles and my grandfather, had to clean up and go and play the wedding because they didn't want to miss out on having that function happen and go through. But on the right side, the young lady who's smiling, that's my aunt. And she died in a car accident as well. My grandparents, they moved from El Paso to Los Angeles in 1968. And so by the time they had me, or as their grandchild, I would get these stories told to me through these images of how they were the first mariachis on Olvera Street. And I thought that was awesome. I was like, that's cool, you know? And I also have that great-grandmother story. But then they would explain to me all my aunt's hopes and wishes. And so it was hard celebrating Day of the Dead because you would see my great-grandparents and my grandparents just kind of go through the motions of the tradition. But it was really big where we came from, and that was in East LA. And we used to live just north of Boyle Heights. And so there was a place called Self-Help Graphics. And Self-Help Graphics, they opened in 1971, and just as a mobile art company, again, with artists and their interpretations on tradition. And they took Day of the Dead, and they started having these processions in 1971. And it was started actually by a Catholic sister, Sister Karen Bacaleras. I hope I pronounced that right. And Carlos Bueno, Antonio Ibanez, and Frank Hernandez. Let's see here. And they started in the Mercado at first, but then they were gifted a building in 1973 by the Order of the Sisters of St. Francis. So again, with tradition and the mix of cultures and artists, always at the forefront of these events and opportunities. And the mission for Self-Help Graphics was to uplift and highlight the artists from the barrio, like my mission statement, the up and coming, the folks who maybe are too shy to go into a gallery and get their artwork up. So back to the DOD that host Self-Help Graphics, they were just amazing. They would start in a cemetery, an evergreen cemetery, and everybody would go to their altars and go to the grave sites that they decorated, and the procession would actually walk from the cemetery going east on Brooklyn, which is actually now Cesar Chavez Boulevard. And so all the altars, all of the cars, all of this was created by all the local artists. Again, I'm like, so this is what I grew up with. I grew up with, it's November 2nd, we're gonna go to Evergreen Cemetery. We're gonna see all the colors come out. Because sometimes death can be so gray. And so doing this, it was like, oh my God, like it was fun because we were with our loved ones who were still here, and we were celebrating those who have passed. But it was a very local event, and it was organized with music, people, danza, food, laughter, and tears. There were still people who were grieving, and all of the colorful papel picado. Oh, wait a minute, that's zoomed up. Oh. So here we have a gentleman decorating some of those skulls that can be held during the procession. All of these artists came from inside that neighborhood. It was a saturated neighborhood, and everybody would come out for this. And it was awesome because they would do this on the weeks leading up to Day of the Dead. So all of October, I was even one of those artists. I was a community mural workshop artist, and I would have all the young kids. And it was funny because a lot of times it was really sad because the students that would show up, it's because they didn't have anything to do on Saturday, and they didn't have any money. And so as artists, again, we created a support system for these young people in the neighborhood. And I thought that was really awesome. It really influenced my life. So every year, as a tradition, they would also ask all of the many artists to put out a piece of art, what they thought described Day of the Dead. So here I have Self-Help Graphics for their 40th year anniversary. But if you look at the images, they're all traditional images. The skull, the Virgin Mary. We have some elements in our neighborhood, the palm trees, the city buildings, the city hall, and a little lowrider. I think that there's an artist that created an image to reflect the culture, past and present. It's called Low God, and it's one of the Aztec guys, and he's riding in a lowrider. It's really cool. So here we have, oh my God, this is Ophelia. She's one of the oldest artists that's still running with Self-Help Graphics. And it's really, if you look up Self-Help Graphics, you might read something that's most current, and they're going through something that's in a community where it's been changed so many times, and there's been so many developers and so much age going through, but they're going through what they call gentrification. But it's really difficult because the understanding of that can be many thoughts, and that might be another Creative Mornings topic. But traditionally, it's hard to take in the young people. They really want to fight, and I admire them for that. But so back to Self-Help Graphics, they installed an art show themed on Day of the Dead, and from everywhere, all of Los Angeles, all the way back home to East Los. So if you've been to LA, you know that all these art places are all on the west side. So having Self-Help Graphics hold down a tradition like Day of the Dead is just really huge and important for all of us, because Some of these artists, they just kind of get bogged down by being pushed back and not being led into art galleries or museums because of their style and way of painting and creating. But let's see. So here is how that finished altar piece would look like. And I think that it's a complete coincidence that you guys all have a traditional altar piece right here in the back. So I hope that you all, while you're having your coffee, you got a chance to look at it. I think that it's a great representation because each one is very different. It's traditional, but it's an element of where that person came from. I even think I see a Van Gogh one in there. Am I right? Yeah, so I think that's really beautiful because all of this Day of the Dead, it really opens up to everybody because that's the only thing we have to do in life, and that is die. Everything else is optional. Right? Oh, wow. It really is. So that's pretty much what it looks like, and that's pretty much what you guys got back there. I just thought that it was really funny. I had never really Googled it or looked it up, and when I did, I was like, this is really cool. Because there's some people that really take it to another level, and they mix up Day of the Dead with Halloween. So just this past procession, I was walking the procession with some folks that had moved from Seattle, and I'm like, that's not Day of the Dead. There was a guy who was dressed like Jason. I was like, it's kind of heavy for me because I was scared. But this next piece is Muerto Mouse. I'm hoping that some of you folks had seen this. Do you know where this image came from? So this all got started because the word got out that Disney was looking to secure the copyrights to the words Dia de los Muertos. Yeah. And I was like, what? I didn't know you can do that. I would have done that. Just kidding. But folks of all kinds, like popular cartoon artist Lalo Alcaraz, that's who created this piece. He was trying, as an artist, again, refocusing on what is tradition. He created this piece and was like, Muerto Mouse, he's going to destroy our neighborhood, He took it to the extreme. And I love them for that. Because he is already famous because of his La Cucaracha editorial cartoon. But the fact that he's always inspired by what is going on that's controversial in our world right now. So if you go online, you'll see a lot of cartoons that he's doing right now on Trump. But what is awesome is that once they made a big old stink about the copyrights, Lalo Alcaraz ended up being a consultant for what we now know as Coco. And I hope you all know that you have a Tucson gem here, and that is Ronnie Capin Rivera Ashford. She actually wrote the book, and it's called Coco Along. There's actually, the title is, I don't have it, oh my Lord. But she wrote the book Coco, and it's the alebritas, those are the little spiritual animals that comes out on the cartoon. All of that came out of Tucson. And I'm really proud of that. I'm not from here. I'm from here now. This is my home now. But I think it's super awesome that a lot of the advisors, like Alfred J. Quiros, was one of the advisors for this. I think that's really huge. Yeah, I mean, sometime soon you should check out Alfred. He's at the Davis Dominguez Gallery down on 6th and 6th. And he's got some pretty interesting art at the moment. Oh, wait a minute. It keeps skipping. I picked this image because if you look in the background, that's my artwork. And I think that's really cool because all of our librarians here in town at Pima County librarians, they are really the rebels out there. They read, they write, and they watch, and they know what you're up to. And so these women said, Mel, you're on fire. Let's do this. And so this year I'll be a moderator at the Nuestras Raíces tent in front of the Bear Gym. And this year they're hoping to make bookmarks of my artwork. But this is again where the artist and the people and traditions, we meet again. So there's that book I was looking for. It's Miguel and the Amazing Alebrijes. I hope I have a bad pronunciation, but I just think it's so fantastic that they did this. I'm still amazed that we have a hometown, that you have a hometown hero in another artist in the form of writing. But this is the movie Coco. Has everybody seen this movie yet? If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It really brings everything home, even the inclusion of the process where some of them have to still go through migration. So Day of the Dead is a tradition. It inspires many artists and many people going through that grieving process, but unfortunately, what makes me sad is sometimes the appropriation of the tradition. But you could not find any of these things in the stores back in 1980 or 1990 or even into 2000. Even in our desert, we have unresolved issues with migration, with thousands of lives lost on the Mexican and Central America. There's a lot of undiscovered bodies still. So as an artist, again, they called upon me to go and learn from the Pima County coroner. I was like, what am I doing here? But again, it's about information and how we interpret that. And so maybe about 2 years ago, ASU, I know this is Wildcat Country, but ASU called upon me as an artist to be part of a show in the School of Human Evolution and Social Change. And that was they were looking a forensic look at migration, and they included the artists. They included me and 7 other artists that were affected by what's going on our border. So I thought that was huge. So we still celebrate by calling it All Souls, inspired by Dia de los Muertos. All Souls procession here in town in Tucson, it was invented in 1990 by a local artist named Susan Johnson. Oh boy. Oh wait, here's some of that merchandise I was talking about. I thought it was crazy, because even some of the stuff I had never grown up with seeing any of these things. We would create everything ourselves, the papel picado, all the little altars. Even if we made shirts, we would do them ourselves. We never found these in the supermarkets. Oh, and this one was interesting. Oh my God. I was like, wow, that really blew my mind. So here we have Susan Johnson, and she started it up in 1990 because she was grieving as well. And this artist found solace in the creativity and celebratory approach. From the beginning, it was different ethnic groups, different cultures. So it was all different origins mashed together. From that day forward, it has grown to 150,000 people. Oh my God. So if you're claustrophobic, I'd say take a bicycle. Also, a little funny story. I was walking the procession with my partner, and she has some claustrophobic kind of instances, where there's too many people or, it's just too much energy for her. And she's like, I gotta go, and I'll meet you at the car. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, I can't, there's too many people. And I said, Melissa, where do you think these people are gonna go when you go to heaven? You're gonna be with the same people. You're gonna be claustrophobic in heaven. Oh my Lord. So we have 150,000 people that come into the town, and it's a 2-mile long walk, it's a people-powered procession, and there's a burning of a large, it's a large urn. I think I have that there, where people walk. And all of these people, again, inspired by artists in this tradition. The urn is filled with offerings and wishes of the public for those who have passed. And there's a myriad of altars, and there's performers, installations, art, and creatives, and it's rich in collaboration. The procession for community members from all walks of life express their grief and loss and celebration of a creative energy, rejoicing in life. So here's some more of that. In this image, I chose this image because that big skull, it had never been done before. I mean, they've had so many different versions and celebratory styles and creations walking the procession. But this one, Tutacomote, was produced by a local artist here in town by the name of Martin Quintanilla. And I think that was super cool that he created that. And I believe that that's him and his wife, Marcy, down here in the bottom. And they created this all by themselves with some donations of a fan of Martin's. And I just think that it's really awesome that we can mash together traditions with our generation in a celebratory creative energy, rejoicing in life. It's a tradition, but it's not just mine anymore. It's mine, it's yours, and it's ours to share. And I don't think I have any more images on there. But I was trying to think as much as I can of how I can help explain what this tradition was. And I hope that I educated you a little bit about where it came from, how I have celebrated it, how I've been affected by it. For those of you who may be grieving in the audience, now you know that there's not just Creative Mornings, but there's a Death Cafe. Also, if you're interested in producing or creating any sorts of art or producing art during this time, please look me up. I would love to work with you on a collaboration on this piece. Losing somebody last night, I have one more story to share if I have time. This lady, she's my wife's grandmother, and she was tough as nails. And she was already old, and we knew she was getting closer. And she even threw us the finger in a photo. I was like, thanks. So, something to remember you by. So I don't know if that will become a part of her tradition in the family. But last night, I was at American Eco, and we were doing Nightmare Before Christmas. And that was cool, because that's another mashup of traditions. That's Halloween and Christmas. I didn't realize how many people really enjoyed painting like a Gothic version of Christmas. But there was children, there was parents, and everybody knew the songs, and everybody was happy, and it was really awesome. I had a really good experience. But as I wrapped up, and I was super tired, I even felt like my eyebrows got stuck. I was like in shock, from all the kids being like, but we were wrapping it up, and we were cleaning up the tables and the chairs and the paint and getting ourselves together and getting ready to go. And even American Eco was, they were shutting down their restaurants. And me and my partner were talking, we're like, man, wasn't that lady mean to me today? And you're like, yes. We were facing each other, and one of the tables, it shook. Boom, and I was like, whoa. I'm like, did you see that? My wife is very scared. She's like, I don't know if I saw that. And I was like, these things happen, and I just kind of let it go. I was like, okay, table shook for no reason. I went to take my materials to the car, and when I did that, I locked myself out of the building. And I was like, oh, my dear Lord. And I looked up, and I saw a shooting star, because there was a meteor shower last night. But I only saw one. And I was like, whoa. And then I got a phone call. You know how everybody saves names of phone caller just in case? So my father-in-law called me. It said, mean old Mr. Brown, because he's mean. And I was like, why is he calling me? And I answered the phone, and I was like, hey, Mr. Brown, what's going on? And he goes, hey, Mel, is Melissa there with you? And I'm like, yes, but I'm locked out of the building. And he's like, okay. I wanted to call you and let you know that my mother passed away. I was like, whoa, oh my God. This woman who has been tough on me and throwing me the finger, she let me know that she left this world. She shook the table, and a shooting star. These things just don't happen, So, and on top of that, she chooses Nightmare Before Christmas and Creative Mornings to do this, where I'm talking about tradition and Day of the Dead. So, if you're out there, Liz, I'm glad to have known you. But this is also important, because with all the negativity in this world, we have to know that what's the most important thing that we have as humans is that we're able to communicate, that we're able to talk to each other. So if you don't know me and I haven't gotten to meet you, please make time for each other. Time is not ours. It truly is a blessing. So I'm so glad and so fortunate to have been the first artist to be selected for Creative Mornings. I hope that I did a good job. I hope you guys all learned a little bit of something. Now you know a little bit more about me and who I am, and that I'm not so shy about using this microphone. So come on, visit me at Galeria Mitotera, which means I like to talk a lot. So I'm going to hand it back to Josh. And thank you so much again.